Welcome to Exhuming the Truth, the podcast where we delve into mysterious worlds of cold cases, missing persons, true crime, and the fascinating science that is forensics. I'm forensic scientist and criminologist Asha Walther, and I am so thrilled to have you with me on this journey as we dance in the shadows of the world of crime, shining a light on scientific discovery while becoming another voice for those who need it most. So grab a drink and get comfy while we jump into this episode together. As always, I would like to extend a content and trigger warning. This podcast is recommended for persons over the age of 18 and contains explicit content not suitable for minors. We will be covering sensitive content that ranges from sexual assault, physical, mental, social, and emotional abuse, suicide, homicide, murder, attempted murder, and other violent crimes, including crimes involving weapons and drugs. This often extends to drug misuse and other harmful and illegal activity. If you find any content to be distressing, I have listed a number of resources that may be able to help you in the podcast notes. I would like to remind all of our listeners that all victims and all offenders are someone's loved one, so I ask that any discussions in our group or on our social accounts remain respectful at all times, and by listening, you acknowledge that all persons of interest remain innocent until proven otherwise. Hello and welcome back to Exhuming the Truth, or if you're new here, welcome in general. It is a Thursday evening that I'm doing this recording and so much has gone on today. I was going to say, when I wrote up this script for this episode, I was thinking I really have nothing to go over in housekeeping, but now as of today, I kind of do. There's been a lot going on in the news right now. And in the criminal justice system. Two super high-profile cases in the news that did not have a good outcome, which is really disappointing, which I'll go into that in further detail in other episodes. We have, of course, the Diddy trial. The results were released today, and his two heaviest charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, he got not guilty for. So the system has completely failed its people and definitely knocked the Me Too movement back off its place. I find that really disappointing, but again, we'll do another episode on that. And the other one is Brian Koberger, the Moscow student murders. We did an episode on. He has actually been offered a plea deal where if he was to plead guilty to the murder of all 4 students, he would not get the death penalty. So that's what he went ahead and did today. I believe the family members and the parents of the students who were murdered, they're not overly thrilled about that, obviously, because this means that there won't be a trial. So I will not be following that trial anymore. But we will do a follow-up episode on that so I can explain to you what that means so you're not confused. They're the two massive ones in the news right now. Both of those verdicts came out today and I was absolutely shocked. We have another update on Phoebe Bishop. There is a third gentleman who has been charged with alleged interference, I believe as an accessory after the fact of murder. He allegedly had been using or tampering with Phoebe's phone. That's a 30-year-old man from West Bundaberg, I believe, in Queensland. And then we have a really, really sad update on Joshua Bishop. He was actually found deceased in West Meadows in the back of somebody's address. We're going to do an episode for that, but I want to make sure that it is in alignment with the family's wishes before we go into any details. I have a lot of people say, hey, can you do this case and that case? And I really appreciate that. A couple of the cases that have been requested, I would love to do, but I'm just, again, waiting on family members. I always like to have at least one family member know that I'm planning on doing an episode because I just want to be respectful. And sometimes it hurts the families more than anything if, a case is brought up. So I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. We also have an episode on Aaron Clear coming up. And I've mentioned his name a few times. He's a missing man in New South Wales, but his inquest is coming up in September. So this is a really important case and it's a really important episode. And it's one that I really have been trying to get, to perfect it so that all the details are correct. And so that's a big one coming up. We also have another one, a man named Corey who's missing in Lehman currently. That's another urgent one. But I'm doing my best. Behind the scenes, I really am working so hard and doing so much. It just doesn't really seem like it when you just get little snippets on social media. But yes, I'm doing my best. And today's episode is another important case. I mean, they're all important. It's so hard to not have a sense of urgency with every case because they all have an urgency behind them. But today we're going to look at a West Australian case, a gentleman named Tristan Griffiths. His family have been so kind and helpful with providing information. They're super desperate for answers. And I would really love you guys to be able to share his name, have a look on our Facebook page and our TikTok account. You'll be able to see some photos of Tristan. And yeah, so we're going to get straight into it. A father, a son, a brother, and a friend. Every missing person matters, regardless of their past. I want to start this episode off by saying that it's so easy for the public to pass judgment, especially when someone has a history of something like substance abuse or prior offences. But those things don't make somebody disposable. A person's mistakes do not erase their humanity, or their right to be found, or their family's right to answers. We're going to be covering a number of missing persons and cold cases where the victim that we're advocating for is not your typical A model citizen or whatever that really means. And what I have to say to that is every single missing person matters, and it's just that simple. Tristan Griffiths has been missing since January this year, and I bet you've never heard his name before now. His family is living in limbo, searching for the truth, fearing the worst, and facing a horrible and cruel stigma instead of compassion. Whether someone has lived a perfect life or struggled with addiction or crime, the bottom line is this. They are still someone's child, someone's sibling, someone's parent, and someone's friend, and they still deserve to be found. Search efforts shouldn't be conditional. Justice and care should never be selective. No one deserves to vanish without a trace, and no family deserves silence in return. And might I remind the universe of the name of this business? Exhuming the truth. The truth. The truth is the sole purpose behind my work and my purpose. And I'll advocate for the truth just as hard in one case as I do in the next. So let's get into it. Tristan Griffiths was 37 years old when he went missing in January the 22nd this year in Kalgoorlie. Tristan was brought up from Albany from incarceration to Kalgoorlie to front court on January the 22nd. Prior to being moved from Albany to Cal, Tristan requested to appear at the Cal hearing via video link. This was because he had safety fears. This request was rejected, which then saw his movement back to Kalgoorlie. On the 22nd of January, the scheduled court date, the other expected party did not appear at the hearing, so the court actually dismissed Tristan into the public to await for the next scheduled hearing date. Tristan was then released from the Kalgoorlie courthouse at 208 Hannon Street, Kalgoorlie. From there, with no money and no belongings, it's understood that Tristan headed into Centrelink at 63 Porter Street, where he was granted an emergency relief payment in order to purchase himself a ticket on the Prospector train from Kalgoorlie to Perth to return home to his family in Rockingham. From Centrelink, he went to withdraw the funds from a Commonwealth Bank ATM. From there, he went to buy the train ticket at the Kalgoorlie railway station at the northern end of Forest Street, Kalgoorlie. The Prospector train makes one trip each way on weekdays. The 22nd of January was a Wednesday, and since it was set to leave around 7 a.m, he missed his chance to board the train for that date. Tristan ended up booking the ticket at 12:26 p.m. on the 23rd of January to depart on the 24th of January at 3 p.m. He did not board the train. As Tristan had no belongings, he put his sister's mobile phone number down when making his railway booking. Tristan never boarded the Prospector, he never made contact with his family again, and he was never seen again. The last known footage of Tristan presented by police was of him leaving the courthouse. Unfortunately, in that video, they have blurred out the surroundings in the footage, so we're only able to see Tristan's face and shoulders. In this footage, it appears that he's wearing a white shirt that had black sleeves. He has a distinctive tattoo on his neck that reads Nirvana, and he also has tattoos on his left arm and stomach. He stands at approximately 178 centimetres tall and is of a medium build with brown hair. His last confirmed sighting, according to police, is at this Commonwealth Bank Australia ATM on Hannon Street. However, there's also the prospector ticket confirmation that does place him at the station post attending the ATM. Interestingly, across from the station, we have accommodation called the Quality Inn and also Rosa and Joe's Bakery. Why am I telling you this? Because there is no way someone didn't see something. To add on to Tristan's appearance, he has a large moon tattoo, a skull tattoo on his back, and leg tattoos. So we can safely describe him as heavily tattooed. There are clown tattoos, and as we said, the Nirvana tattoo on his neck. But I'm going to go into a little bit of a description for those who are unfamiliar with the town of Kalgoorlie. This is a town that was literally born in the 1890 gold rush, okay? And it continues to be a mining town to this day. It's remote, it's isolated, it's over 600 kilometres east of Perth. It's about a 6-hour drive, I believe, from Perth. And it is surrounded by bushland in basically every direction. So just think of desert / bushland / mine shafts. In a place like Cal, when a person disappears, the land itself can become a huge barrier. I want to acknowledge the lack of information surrounding Tristan's case. And I know your first thought will be similar to mine and everybody else's who's picked this up and looked at it is, CCTV, do we have this, do we have that? And unfortunately, the answer is no. A lot of the time, a lot of missing persons, particularly a missing person who might have a bit of a history in the criminal justice system, it's not taken that seriously. If you go and report somebody missing, they might say, oh, they're hiding from this, they're hiding from that, blah, blah, blah. And by the time they do acknowledge people as a missing person and they kind of trace their last steps and they get to where we're at saying, hey, he got a train ticket and he didn't board the train, by that stage, unfortunately, a lot of the CCTV, especially in commercial areas like the train station and things like that, they run over quite a short system. Sometimes it's a 7-day system, sometimes it's a 14-day system. So what they do is they record for, say, 7 days or a 14-day set period, and then it wipes and they start all over again. And that's usually because they don't have, it's quite expensive, so they don't have the funds for, a big CCTV operation, which you would think that the train station would, but I don't believe they do. As far as I'm aware, the police did try and get CCTV, but that literally what I've told you is all that they got. I am also aware that the family did make an effort to go into Cal, put up posters and make inquiries in local businesses and things, and literally no one got anywhere. It's wild to me that main places, I understand things like a bakery, etc., they will have a 7 to 14 day turnover with their CCTV, which again is not ideal if somebody is not reported and taken seriously that day. But places like the train station, I would kind of expect them to have a bit of a longer system, but that's a whole other problem in itself. So I just wanted to go over that, okay? I also had the pleasure of putting this together. I put this together with Tristan's sister and his mum, and they're both incredibly lovely people. And they just so deserve answers, and they don't deserve, what comes with posting things online, how people feel like they can just say what they want. Like I said, every missing person is a missing person. I don't care about that background, and either should you. It's about the family and it's about public safety, and there's just a wider issue here. And I want to add that Tristan has a daughter. He's got a beautiful daughter. who's recently celebrated her 12th birthday. And that's something that has been stressed to me that he just wouldn't miss. People might have histories of, being here, there, and everywhere, but there's certain things they wouldn't miss. And families and loved ones of these people know these people. They know their routine. They know what's out of the ordinary for them, and they're adamant. This is not, like people have commented saying, oh, maybe he's on the run. He would not miss his daughter's birthday. And I had the pleasure of speaking to Tristan's ex-partner, the mother of his daughter, and she stressed this as well. Their daughter, she celebrated her birthday, and there's still nothing from Tristan. So we're talking January this year. And somebody has to know something. And I also want to stress that when you're in a position where you might know something and it can help a family, but it can also be detrimental to you, and you're scared about being involved or for your safety, Crime Stoppers is entirely anonymous. You can always submit anonymmus tips to Crime Stoppers, and you're not going to be followed up because, again, it's anonymous. So I really hope that if anybody has anything that might help, and it might be insignificant to you, but if there's anything in relation to this, I do stress that you either do call Crime Stoppers. You can go on Crime Stoppers' website. You can contact us. You can contact the family. We're on every platform now. We have an email address. I get a lot of tips from people in regards to other cases. So please also, just don't feel afraid to open up the conversation. And I want you to keep his beautiful daughter in mind, and his siblings and his mum, and keep them in your thoughts when you continue on with your day. People think things like this are never going to happen to them, okay? And when it does, and like it happens to them, let me tell you that things just never go to plan. You think that, the police are going to be there and hold your hand through this process. They're not. I cover these stories because all of these families are not being helped, okay? And it could be any one of us. It could be one of our loved ones. And unlike other terrible comorbidities like terminal illnesses, this is something as a community that we actually have the power to help prevent. Like, we have the power to actually come together as a community. Just wipe out the authorities from your mind for a moment. We can come together as a community, and we have the power to help prevent people going missing. And if we can't prevent it, we can at least be the shoulder that these families need and show them that while they might have lost the support, of authorities, or the support that they need elsewhere, they have it here and they have it with us. And that's the community I want to build with Exhuming the Truth, and that's what we're here for. So again, thank you for being here. I just also want to say that we will share everyone's names, missing persons' names. We will continue to share their names and Tristan's name and Tristan's story, regardless of what they said or did on their worst days, because the odds of us all being on this planet at the same time together is literally so rare, it's beyond comprehension. So I don't know why you would not want to help. And I'm hoping that by being here and by listening and by following along on the page, it's because you want to help. So I have put together a little bit of a forensic and criminological analysis on Tristan's case that might ring some bells with some people. Otherwise, it might educate you a little bit. Either way, I've done it, so here it is. So for the forensic analysis, without being there, I actually have family members who live there, and they've been super helpful. I have been there before, so I am familiar-ish, and I have spent a lot of time on Google Earth. But forensically speaking, the environmental factors that we have in Cal, okay, so January's summer, it's hot. If you think it's hot where you are in summer, well, Cal's hotter. I can almost guarantee you. So the environmental factors we've got here is heat, wildlife, and remoteness, as well as the mines. And like I said to you, if you think of Cal, you think of a desert, you think of a bush, and you think of mine shafts. It's hot as. Try not to swear, but it is bloody hot there. It is remote, which is a barrier in itself. Phone tracking and digitals, like phone tower reception, can be a bit patchy and inconsistent, particularly outside the town centre. This isn't particularly relevant here because Tristan actually didn't have a mobile phone at the time. So unfortunately, that's not going to be useful in this case, but that's just something to keep in mind. Like we said before, the CCTV blind spots. So compared to the metro areas, the CCTV coverage in Cal is not amazing. The main street, like Hannon Street, which is in question here, does have CCTV coverage, primarily from things like the local council, so like council installed CCTV, public cameras, pubs and servos and things like that. There's a lot of gaps in coverage, just from doing my own research, and a lot of places have like the older analog systems that aren't HD, and the older systems that don't record for long, like we said earlier. I know from research that the train station has limited storage, so they'll run their recordings and erase it periodically for storage purposes. So potentially here, Tristan could have walked only a few blocks off the main road and vanished without surveillance record, which is not ideal at all, and it doesn't give us a visual timeline that we would otherwise usually get in, say, a Perth metro area. Another issue here was the delays in policing efforts and contacting the family. So again, the delays is a bit of a snowball effect is probably more appropriate, because again, if there's a delay in the police work and the missing report, then there is a delay in seeking CCTV, and then there's a delay in the storage and it's been written over. So that just continues to snowball itself. But from a criminological outlook, the one that comes to my mind here is routine activity theory. And I'm thinking, was he vulnerable due to a lack of capable guardianship, like being in a risky location or in contact with a motivated offender? We've spoken in other episodes about routine activity theory and capable guardianship being things like CCTV and police monitoring and things like that. And I would say, since this is a remote area and the CCTV isn't fantastic, there is definitely a lack of an appropriate guardian in this case. And systemically, this is actually a huge issue for Cal when they're looking at crime prevention and not having to deal with a case like Tristan's. The design of CCTV placements and regular police patrolling and adequate lighting and things like this help, but also when releasing somebody from prison, I think it's important in this case to highlight that Tristan did express his discomfort with going back to Cal. In fact, he was moved away from incarceration in Cal due to being assaulted, and he had expressed his concern with being there due to the fact that he knew that he would be assaulted there. So I think that wasn't taken very seriously, or there could have been more done. I think they knew that he wasn't comfortable with going out into Cal when they released him, and that's a red flag. But again, I think this is a bit of a systemic issue, and they've said, like, we don't care, just get out of the courthouse, basically. Then there's another theory in criminology called the social disorganisation theory, which I haven't spoken about before. But Kalgoorlie's socio-economic context, oh my God, I've been talking long. Kalgoorlie's socio-economic context has a high rate of alcohol and drug use, which can destabilise informal community control. So like every person I've spoken to about this case have been like, there's a bit of a bikie/drug thing, going on in Cal. And this is not the first instance where I have heard of a bit of a drug issue in Cal, which unfortunately is to be expected in a smaller and more remote town. And like I said, there's no bikie activity as well. And unfortunately, a lot of areas for disposal of evidence, particularly surrounding the mine shafts. There's been so many cases in our past in Australia where mine shafts have been used. When we look at the victimology here, and we're looking at Tristan as the victim, was he at an elevated risk due to his personal circumstances? Well, considering his known substance use but intent to be clean, that can tell us that A, yes, he had substance abuse problems prior to the 22nd of January, and B, he had the intent to be sober and make a meaningful connection with his daughter, and C, he had intended to travel to his family for safety and a fresh start, including assistance in sober living. Tristan would be a high-risk category, knowing this, and I'm concerned that there was no intervention or other service that he could have gone to straight from court if he had fears for his safety, which sadly they were very genuine fears, obviously. So I think that when looking at the victimology of Tristan, he's definitely been the victim of systemic failures in helping ensure his safety as well. And the opportunity and target hardening. So the lack of infrastructure and safety mechanisms like the functioning CCTV or the CCTV that has longer storage, and the lack of police patrolling and things like that, is that enabling foul play? Yes, I think it's fair to say it is. I'm not saying Cal's the only place that, falls under the line in that category. So many places do, don't get me wrong. But when I'm looking at Tristan's situation, I often try and see if we can get anywhere with their case, but also if there's some way we can prevent this happening in the future. And I think looking at this case, there are so many things here that could have changed the outcome, I believe. So I also noted down a couple of investigative gaps to do with authorities and public cooperation. I don't know if they did a formal risk assessment for Tristan, which basically they use a matrix called the National Risk Assessment Matrix. They do that on missing persons. I don't know if they did that. I don't believe they did, because I believe that the family should have that if they did. I don't believe that they did any drone searching or dog searching or GPR or anything like that. I saw one public appeal for footage from the Cal police, and that was on Facebook. That actually showed the CCTV video of him leaving, but it was just his head, which is kind of annoying because you couldn't really put him in a location there. It was just like everything was blurred out. And yeah, I think also another thing, his immediate family, like, we're not the only ones confirming what type of person Tristan was. And I know we've spoken that he's experienced issues with substances such as drugs, but so many people actually came online, sent me messages and wrote on the video that I put up of Tristan, expressing their condolences to the family for going through this, and also saying how much of a great guy he was. And Tristan's ex-partner also said, she spoke quite highly of him, and she only spoke to him 3 days before he went missing, so they were in regular contact. And a big thing here was Tristan's intent. He had intent to go back home to his family, his daughter. So that can tell us that he has potentially met with foul play. He had an intention to go there. He didn't make it. And he hasn't just dropped off the face of the earth, you guys. This is incredibly suspicious. And I am going to do subsequent episodes on this. And I'm going to keep sharing Tristan's name until we get a result for the family. But unfortunately, what the police do a lot of the time is say, well, we don't have any new evidence, so we're going to leave it as it is until we have new evidence to look at. And that can sometimes be something as small as like a text message, or I thought I saw this person this day, or I know this person and they spoke about it. Things like this. So if we can get the story circling, I don't know, either or, that's going to help massively. And I'd love to do justice for this family. It's just not good enough, in my opinion. And there's got to be a business, a person, or something that has seen something or knows something. Again, like I said, anonymous tip-offs are always available. You can submit whatever you want or need or feel will be helpful anonymously. And I also, just being here and listening to this is incredible and amazing, and I appreciate it so much. The family are going to appreciate it so much, and I want to get heaps of exposure for them and for Tristan and for Tristan's daughter. So I might break it down into a visual timeline. We'll see how we go, and if you have any questions, please make sure you yell out. But aside from that, thank you so much for being here. Again, I acknowledge the lack of information, but unfortunately that's all we have. Oh, that's the last thing I wanted to touch on. I was staring this fact down for hours, and I finally worked it out with some independent research. I was thinking, it's been said over and over again, Tristan had nothing on him, no belongings, but he went to Centrelink and then he went to an ATM. I'm thinking, did he steal someone's card or something, but no. What I've worked out is Centrelink provide, it's like an emergency relief payment for people who have just come out of incarceration. So because he had nothing on him, when you're coming out of incarceration or custody, etc., they'll issue you a document that is basically like a form of ID, and it says like, this is this person's details, they've been here with us, and it will pass as, a form of ID. So that's what they take into Centrelink. And Centrelink can then, they also have the power to, for people like Tristan who don't have any belongings, like a bank account or a bank card, they can give a temporary like e-card situation. So it's just like a temporary bank card where they can actually just go to the ATM and take the money out. So that's the answers around that. So if you're thinking, well, how did he get money out if he had no belongings? That I also thought that, but that's the process. He will have gone to Centrelink, been granted that, been given that temporary card to access his funds and taken the funds out of the bank. And in saying that, the payment, when I last checked, I believe was around the $800 mark. And I believe the prospector train is around the $100 mark. So take away that cost for the prospector. I would say that if his wallet or belongings, he didn't have a wallet, so maybe he put the cash in his pocket, he would have had cash on him. So I think that's another big thing to note down too, if that could have been the motivation for somebody doing something. He definitely had cash on him because that was basically all. He had that sheet from the courthouse and he had cash, and that's all we can confirm. When he was booking the ticket, like I said, he didn't have a mobile number, so he has put his sister's mobile number. And they weren't made aware of this until the police actually rang the sister's mobile asking who she was in relation to Tristan, and that's how things kind of moved along as a missing persons, because she was like, what, I haven't seen or heard from him, and the police were like, okay, well, he's missing. So this is how it eventuated. So I hope that covered a few questions that you might have had. That was certainly my big question, and I'm glad that we got to resolve it. But yeah, thank you so much for being here and for listening, and we will keep you updated. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I hope you have enjoyed it here. If so, you can subscribe to stay up to date on new episodes, or you can find us both on Instagram, Facebook, and now TikTok. You can join our Facebook group to join in on the case discussions and make case requests. You can find the link to our group in our podcast notes. As always, stay curious, stay informed, and until next time, trust your instincts and keep seeking the truth.